Howdy, folks. Today we're journeying back to the 9th century England. Picture a land divided by 7 kingdoms: Northumbria, Mercia, East Anglia, Wessex, Essex, Kent, and Sussex. Our story unfolds in Wessex, a kingdom forged in conflict and destined for greatness. Amidst Viking raids, a leader would rise, Æthelred I of Wessex. Æthelred I, born a prince of Wessex, wasn't initially destined for the throne. His elder brothers, Ethelbald and Ethelbert, died unexpectedly, leaving Æthelred to inherit the throne in 865 AD. Viking raids had escalated into full-blown invasions. The Great Heathen Army had landed, and Æthelred faced the daunting task of defending his kingdom. He had the support of his younger brother Alfred, a skilled warrior. Together, they rallied the Anglo-Saxon militia for the inevitable clash. What followed was intense warfare, a desperate struggle for survival. Æthelred's reign was profoundly consequential. He stood as a bulwark against the Viking tide, embodying Wessex's resilience. His reign laid the foundation for his brother, Alfred the Great. Æthelred's story is about courage, the enduring spirit of a people, and a king's pivotal role in shaping England's destiny. Æthelred was born between 847 and 849 AD, the fourth son of King Æthelwulf and Queen Osber. His birth came at a time of growing Viking threat. As a prince, he enjoyed a privileged upbringing, educated by monks and trained in the warrior culture. Despite his royal status, Æthelred's early life involved rigorous physical training. The Anglo-Saxons were a warrior people, and the sons of kings were expected to be the bravest. Æthelred was acutely aware of the responsibility that came with his lineage. As Æthelred grew, so did the Viking menace. Sporadic raids escalated into full-blown invasions, bringing fire, bloodshed, and chaos. The Vikings were skilled seafarers and fierce warriors, striking with terrifying speed. For Æthelred and his brothers, these were living threats to their homeland. The Viking raids hit close to home, sacking villages and burning monasteries. Young Æthelred, sword in hand, braced himself for the inevitable day he would face the Northmen. These turbulent times forged Æthelred into the warrior king he was destined to become. As a younger son, Æthelred wasn't initially destined for the throne. His elder brother's deaths thrust him into more prominent roles. King Æthelwulf prepared his sons for future challenges, entrusting them with military and administrative responsibilities. Æthelred accompanied his father on royal progresses, learning governance and the importance of loyalty. He participated in military campaigns against the Vikings, learning the art of war. On the battlefield, Æthelred observed seasoned warriors and the brutal realities of combat. These experiences prepared him for the challenges ahead. In 865 AD, Æthelred ascended to the throne at age 23. The Viking threat had transformed into a full-blown invasion. The Great Heathen Army rampaged through East Anglia, now targeting Wessex. Æthelred's coronation was overshadowed by the looming threat. The young king knew the fate of his people rested on his decisions and courage. He inherited a kingdom at war, in need of strong leadership. Æthelred's upbringing and battlefield experiences had prepared him for this moment. He was ready to fight for his kingdom's survival. Æthelred's reign began with a baptism by fire. The Vikings intensified raids along Wessex borders, probing for weaknesses. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle describes these years as constant warfare. Æthelred and Alfred emerged as figureheads of Wessex's resistance. They led the Anglo-Saxon militia in desperate defensive battles. Æthelred proved himself a capable and courageous leader, inspiring his men. Early battles were brutal learning experiences, forcing Æthelred to adapt his tactics. The year 871 AD saw the conflict reach a boiling point. The Great Heathen Army, led by Ivar the Boneless, marched into Wessex. The Battle of Ashdown, fought on January 8, 871, was a defining moment. Æthelred, still at prayer, nearly cost them the battle, but Alfred led the initial charge. The Anglo-Saxons fought with unmatched ferocity, inspired by Æthelred's bravery. The battle was a brutal struggle for supremacy, with Æthelred at the heart of the melee. The victory at Ashdown was just one battle in a long war. The Vikings regrouped and continued their campaign of terror. Æthelred faced internal challenges from ambitious nobles. He navigated Anglo-Saxon politics with diplomacy, alliances, and brute force. Æthelred sought to forge alliances with other Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. These alliances were crucial in buying Wessex time and resources to continue the fight. The constant warfare took a heavy toll on Wessex and Æthelred. In 871 AD, Æthelred sustained a grievous wound in battle. The exact nature of his injury remains a mystery. Some speculate a head wound, others an infection. Æthelred's wound proved fatal, and he died, buried at Wimborne. His death was a devastating blow to Wessex. He left behind a young wife and 2 infant sons. The burden of leadership now fell upon his younger brother, Alfred. Æthelred's reign, though short, was pivotal in Anglo-Saxon history. He faced unprecedented challenges and proved himself a courageous warrior and skilled leader. He inspired his people to fight for survival and forged crucial alliances. His reign laid the groundwork for Alfred the Great's successes. Æthelred's contributions ensured his name would be etched in history. He was the unsung hero who paved the way for Alfred the Great. The year 871 had been a whirlwind of battles, victories, and losses for the young king. The victory at Ashdown had ignited a flicker of hope in the hearts of the Anglo-Saxons, a sign that the Vikings could be beaten. Yet, fate, as fickle as ever, had other plans. In the midst of this desperate struggle for survival, tragedy struck Wessex. King Æthelred I, the warrior who had stood as a bulwark against the Viking tide, succumbed to his wounds on April 23, 871. The exact circumstances of his death remain shrouded in mystery. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, typically so rich in detail, offers a frustratingly brief account, simply stating that he died and was buried at Wimborne. Some historians speculate that the wounds he sustained earlier that year, perhaps at the Battle of Merton, proved fatal. Others believe he succumbed to an illness that swept through his war-torn kingdom. Imagine the grief that swept through Wessex as news of their king's death spread. He was a young man, barely in his 20s, yet he had ruled with courage and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. He had stood shoulder to shoulder with his people, sharing their hardships, leading them in battle, and embodying the spirit of defiance against the invaders. His death, coming so soon after the glimmer of hope offered by Ashdown, must have been a crushing blow to the morale of the Anglo-Saxons. Their king, their warrior, their protector, was gone. The weight of Wessex, the responsibility for its survival, now fell upon the shoulders of his younger brother Alfred. The death of a king, especially one who had fallen in the prime of his life defending his people, sent shockwaves through Anglo-Saxon society. Æthelred was more than just a ruler. He was a symbol of hope, a figurehead who embodied the strength and resilience of Wessex. His passing left a void in the hearts of his people, a void that would be difficult, if not impossible, to fill. For the common folk of Wessex, Æthelred's death would have been felt keenly. They had looked to him for protection, for leadership, for a glimmer of hope in those dark and uncertain times. His absence would have amplified the ever-present fear of Viking raids, the uncertainty of the future, the feeling that their world was teetering on the brink of collapse. The nobility, too, would have felt the weight of Æthelred's passing, though perhaps for different reasons. The delicate balance of power within Wessex, already strained by the constant threat from the Vikings, was suddenly thrown into disarray. Ambitions, long held in check, might now surface, threatening to divide the kingdom at its most vulnerable hour. Yet, amidst the grief and uncertainty, there was a sense of continuity. Æthelred's younger brother, Alfred, a seasoned warrior and a proven leader in his own right, was the clear choice to succeed him. The transition of power, though overshadowed by tragedy, was smooth and swift. There would be time for mourning later. For now, the survival of Wessex depended on unity, on strength, on rallying behind their new king. Though his reign was tragically cut short, Æthelred I's impact on Wessex, and indeed on the course of English history, should not be underestimated. He had inherited a kingdom in crisis, a kingdom facing an enemy unlike any it had encountered before. Yet he rose to the challenge, leading with courage and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. His greatest legacy, perhaps, was his influence on his younger brother, Alfred. The two brothers had fought side by side, sharing the burdens of leadership, learning from their victories and defeats. Æthelred's reign, though marked by conflict and hardship, provided Alfred with invaluable experience, shaping him into the leader he would become. Æthelred's military reforms, his emphasis on strengthening Wessex's defenses, and his efforts to forge alliances with other Anglo-Saxon kingdoms laid the groundwork for Alfred's later successes. It was under Æthelred that the Anglo-Saxons began to adapt their tactics, learning from the Vikings' brutal efficiency and adopting new strategies to counter their lightning raids. Moreover, Æthelred's unwavering commitment to resisting the Vikings, his refusal to be cowed by their might, instilled a spirit of defiance in the hearts of the Anglo-Saxons. It was this spirit, nurtured during Æthelred's reign, that would ultimately enable Alfred to rally his people, to push back against the invaders and to secure a lasting peace for Wessex. Alfred, now King of Wessex, faced a daunting task. The Viking threat, far from diminishing, had only intensified in the wake of Æthelred's death. Yet the new king, tempered by years of warfare and guided by the lessons learned from his brother's reign, was ready to confront the challenge head-on. Alfred's reign would be one of constant struggle, of setbacks and triumphs, of innovation and adaptation. He understood that defeating the Vikings required more than just military might. He needed to outmaneuver them, outsmart them, to create a society that was resilient, adaptable, and united in its determination to resist. He reformed the Anglo-Saxon army, creating a standing force capable of responding swiftly to Viking raids. He oversaw the construction of a network of fortified burhs, strategically placed towns that served as defensive strongholds and centers of resistance. He encouraged literacy and learning, recognizing that knowledge was as powerful a weapon as any sword. And most importantly, Alfred never gave up hope. He inspired his people, reminding them of their heritage, their strength, their unwavering belief in their own destiny. He became a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope in the darkness, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the Anglo-Saxons. Æthelred I of Wessex might not be a household name like his brother, Alfred the Great, but don't let that fool you. This king, he was a fighter, a leader who stood strong against the Viking storm. He faced those fearsome warriors head-on, never backing down, never losing sight of his duty to Wessex, to his people. His reign, cut tragically short, was a crucible, a fiery test that forged the destiny of England. He bought precious time for Wessex, time that Alfred would use wisely. Those battles, those alliances, those tough choices Æthelred made, they paved the way for a future where England wouldn't be carved up by invaders, but united under one banner. Think about those ancient battlefields, the clash of steel, the courage of those warriors, Anglo-Saxon and Viking alike. Æthelred was right there in the thick of it, leading his men, defending his kingdom. He understood that Wessex wasn't just land, it was an ideal worth fighting for, dying for. He might be gone, buried beneath the weight of centuries, but his spirit, that fire in his belly, it lived on in Alfred, in the very heart of Wessex, and in a way, it lives on in us, in the stories we tell, in the history we remember. Well, that's a somewhat brief story of Æthelred I of Wessex, a king who deserves to be remembered, a king who faced down the Vikings with grit and determination. Hope y'all enjoyed this little journey back in time, back to a world of swords and shields, of kings and warriors. If you found this video right interesting, why, hit that like button like you're hammering a Viking shield. And don't forget to subscribe to keep up with all our historical adventures. We're digging into the past, bringing those stories back to life right here on this channel. Until next time, y'all keep exploring, keep learning, and keep that love of history alive. And always remember, folks, History ain't just dates and names in a dusty book. It's the story of us, of where we came from, and it's a story that deserves to be told. Thanks for watching.